fact, the undisputed dominance of the US dollar is receding. While nobody across the world will be refusing greenbacks in the near future, the trend is clear. Many global South economies are looking for alternatives to reduce their dependence on the US dollar. Globally, it's accelerating a process called de-dollarization. Now, with the exception of countries already subject to US sanctions, the idea of anything superseding the dollar was once unthinkable to most countries. But then Russia invaded Ukraine.
The sanctions we opposed exceed anything that's ever been done.
The US and the West were right to respond to Russia's aggression. But by sanctioning and unplugging Moscow from the global financial system, Washington also rattled many emerging economies, pushing them to chase alternatives. China took notice and encouraged much of the world to follow suit, accelerating a wave that's been chipping away at dollar hegemony.
There is a risk when we use financial sanctions that are linked to the role of the dollar, that over time it could undermine the hegemony of the dollar, as you said. This is an extremely important tool we try to use judiciously.
The reality is that the weaponization of the dollar as a blunt instrument of statecraft is giving U.S. allies and adversaries an opening to look for alternative settlement mechanisms. For example, Russia is selling its natural gas to China in Chinese yuan. France just sold its first LNG shipment to China in yuan. China and Brazil will be settling all their bilateral trade in Chinese yuan. The BRIC countries are in discussion for a unified BRICS currency to bypass the US dollar entirely. And the list goes on and on and on.
And think about this. 29% of the global economy is under sanctions. 40% of global oil reserves are under sanctions. Most developing nations owe external debt in dollars. Basic commodities like raw materials and food are also priced in dollars. And the US should also recognize that its current fiscal situation and the Fed's own misplaced policies could also be accelerating this trend.
Look, the trend of de-dollarization is already underway. It's happening, with or without the participation of the US or its leadership. Acknowledging this basic fact would be a first step in the US participating in a global restructuring of the monetary system by consensus, with the buy-in of countries in the developing world. The alternative is an unmanaged decline in US economic hegemony, and history warns us of the potential wars, hot wars, arising from these types of shift in power.